Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Business Revolution podcast. And I'm joined today for my next episode in the Changing Conversation series by Lynn Canale. And I'm so excited to speak to Lynn today. She is from Fresh Beginnings. Her coaching business is called Fresh Beginnings, and she coaches and mentors women who are recovering from divorce and are struggling with being single in their 50s and 60s. But what I'm hoping to discuss today is how this understanding really speaks to those times in our lives when life takes a very unexpected turn, and how it can help us deal with that. And so anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Lynn and let her kind of explain her journey and maybe how she came to the principles as well, and also how she's going to speak to today's topic, because I think you're going to be in for a real treat. So hi, Lynn. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited that you're here.
Yes, me too. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's great.
Right. So, I'll tell you, I can tell you how I first was introduced to the principles. We'll start there, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a good place.
I think it was 2014, perhaps 2013. I'm not quite sure exactly the year, but it was quite a while ago. And I was introduced to the principles through Mary Schiller. I knew Mary in her previous business when she was building websites, and I actually knew her before she came across the three principles. So I've been following Mary for quite a while. And I have to say, when I first heard about the principles, I got angry. I actually got angry because I thought, wow, like there's people out there making money and having businesses around something that to me was just nothing new. Like it was just something that I always knew. It's hard to explain, but it just didn't feel like it was something that I thought people needed to learn. Let's put it that way. I guess assumed that I knew kind of how it worked. I've been a spiritual person all my life. I've had lots of different experiences that have made me touch my own spirituality. And I guess assumed that everybody was like that. I know that sounds really funny, but I mean, that's at the time I thought, how can people be, making a business out of sharing something that's just is?
Yeah.
But then, and I was really skeptical, and I thought, oh, I'm not sure I'm liking this, and I kind of like came away from it for a few months, and I thought, I'm not so sure about this, but for some reason, I just kept getting drawn back into it. I started to follow a few people. I think Mary had mentioned Michael Neal when she first told me about it, and the Pranskys, and I started just looking at their stuff and going on their websites and trying to learn a bit more, and eventually I got to the point that, well, maybe everybody doesn't know about this, and then I just started getting more interested, and then I realized that people don't know about this. Yeah. It took me a while. I guess it reminded me of when my first child was born, and he was like an amazing, chilled out, peaceful, no problem child. And I thought, oh my goodness, like I have to have another one of these. I knew right away within a month of him being born that I wanted to have more children. And it was a shock because the second one came along, my son Elliot, and he was totally different from my first child. And that's when I realized, I kind of used that as an analogy. Well, not everybody, we're not all the same.
Yeah.
We're not all the same. but anyway, I started to get more interested in it, and now I know that people don't know about it. I do know that now, and it's, you know, it's a great thing to be sharing with people. But so yeah, that's how I first found out about it, and I was very skeptical and I was angry, but I'm not like that anymore.
But I love that. I love that. And you know, so often when I'm working with clients and we'll have 2 or 3 conversations, and then it will dawn on them that actually this is something that they've always known. They've always known that life works this way, but they've kind of got sucked into this illusion that it's more complicated and harder and more difficult, and really made it into something that it isn't. And it is that kind of process, isn't it, of like, you know, waking people up to say, hey, you know this.
Yes.
But then maybe
and
they've not.
I guess that's what it was that I was thinking at the time when I was like, you know, angry and skeptical about it, because I thought that everybody knew that. But you're right, people need to be woken up to it. They have it in them, it's there, but they just can't see it.
Yeah. And we struggle to put it into words when we don't know that is the kind of the answer. We rely on it because we're just not quite so sure that it is that easy, or is that straightforward, if you like, you know. And so I think you're absolutely right when you listen to someone who's saying to you, you know, with that truth, no, that you are right, this is how it works. It's kind of like, you know, really impactful, isn't it? Yeah. So did you start coaching straight away, or how did that kind of evolve for you?
No, I was coaching already before I heard about the 3 Ps. I just kind of fell into the coaching world, really. My marriage ended. I was married for 22 years, and my husband had an affair, and it was like, at the time, that was back in 2010, 2009, and I was absolutely devastated. I have to say, it was like I was on the floor. I just couldn't find a way up, and I was like just extremely traumatized. And I knew, it's funny because I've always been a really strong character. I've always been able to get through things on my own. You know, all sorts of problems that I've had growing up, and my parents divorced, and my 3rd son came 8 weeks early, and he was in the hospital, and we didn't know whether he was going to make it. So like, I've had a lot of adversity in my life, but this was different. This, like, when my marriage ended, and I'm so thankful that this happened to me. I just had this amazing insight, like this neon light flashing in my head that you can't get through this without help. And I wasn't one to ask for help. So I quickly started going, searching online for, you know, a divorce recovery workshop, or just any kind of support that I could get to help me through it. And I did find a divorce recovery workshop, and in fact, that's what it's called, DRW. And I was living in the UK at the time, and I went along to this. It was a 6-week program, and there was, I couldn't believe it when I first got there. There must have been about 40 or 50 people in the room, and men and women, and we were all put into different groups of about 6 or 8 of us, and it was just an amazing lifeline for me. I just could not believe how impactful and helpful it was getting that support. I couldn't wait till 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. It was just my lifeline, and just being in the group and just sharing and listening to other people's stories just made me feel so not alone, and that, you know, and some people's stories were way worse than mine was, and it was just hugely helpful. So much so that I carried on doing 2 more 6-week programs as a volunteer to co-facilitate the groups, and that was where my coaching came in. I just thought, you know what, like I'm getting, there has to be other women out there that can get what I'm getting from this. And that started my I started my coaching training, and I started, working with women who were recovering from divorce. And then after my divorce was final, I moved back to Canada because I'm from Canada, and I came back to Canada when the marriage ended. And I started group divorce recovery workshops here in the town that I live in.
Wow.
So I kind of saw it as, I used to see, we often wonder, like, why is this happening to me? And this is the sort of thing that happens to other people, not me. But it did happen to me, and it wasn't part of my life plan. And I saw it as a gift. I thought I can help people. This is my gift to them. And it's funny. I've been doing this now for 6 or 7 years, and I don't do the group work anymore, but I'm thinking about starting it up again. And I've often tried to get away from it, because I'm thinking, it can feel heavy sometimes. Not so much anymore. I'm not feeling that anymore. But when I was thinking or contemplating leaving that niche area, I felt that it was keeping me stuck in my own story. But you know what? I've tried to leave it twice, and I keep coming back to it. So I've surrendered. I have now surrendered. This is my work, and I'm going at it full tilt. I'm getting a whole new rebrand, a new website, like everything. I'm working on lots of different blog content and all sorts of stuff. So now I'm in full swing again.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I love how you're just kind of like giving into wisdom. It's going to take you anywhere, so you may as well enjoy the ride.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, one of the things that we discussed that you wanted to share, and you really open there describing how you were after your divorce, which, going through that breakup, which clearly is one of life's bigger curveballs. But life threw you another curveball, didn't it, after you'd come to the understanding? And would you mind sharing about that, and just sharing about how the understanding really gave you a contrast between the two kind of traumas, if you like?
Yes. More recently, and this has really highlighted the 3 Ps in action. I actually haven't experienced this, but I have 3 sons. They're all in their 20s, and my middle son, Elliot, has been living in Hong Kong for the last 18 months, teaching English as a second language. And at the end of April this year, he finished his contract with the teaching, and he was meant to be coming back to Canada for the summer, but that all went pear-shaped, and this is what happened. He decided that before he came back, he would do some traveling around Asia. He's already in that part of the world, so he was going to Vietnam and Japan, and I think Taiwan the other place before he came back. And meeting up some French candidates was Vietnam, and he had a week to like travel around on his own before flying to Japan to meet up with his buddy. And this is not much. and funny someone it's very different. He being held language over there to figure out how day or whatever it ended up that happens the agreement, and the police are right in the middle of it. So the police have all the power. It was just a horrendous 4 months. Like it was like we were on the phone every day, like 24/7, messaging and texting. And the embassy, the British embassy was involved. The Canadian embassy was involved. We ended up having 3 different lawyers and solicitors to help him with this. And in the end, the thing that happened to allow him to leave is that the woman passed away. She died of her injuries.
Oh no.
Well, actually, that's not entirely true. She didn't die of her injuries. She was in the hospital and she died of meningitis. She caught an infection. She was actually coming round. She came out of the coma and she was sitting up and she was actually being coherent. So she was actually getting better. And then she caught an infection in the hospital and she died of meningitis. But it sounds so hard to say this, but she did pass away. But it was Elliot's exit card, if you like, because the family wasn't able to come up with a financial agreement with us to allow him to leave, because they didn't know how long the woman was going to live for, or how much care she would need. They couldn't put a number on the fact that she needed 7 days a week, 24-hour care for the rest of her life, perhaps. So they weren't able to come to a number. That we offered all sorts of things, but they weren't accepting it. And it wasn't until she passed that we came up with an agreement, and he was allowed to leave. But going back to the 3 principles, like what happened with me, like, I mean, I was coping with all of this from April until, when did he leave? August, beginning of August, he got out, and he came home. And like going through all of that period I had the support of my ex-husband. He was, I spoke to him during those 4 months. I spoke to him more than I have in the last 7 or 8 years. He was very much part of my life during that time, and that was great. Like, he was amazing. He really pulled up, came to the mark and helped out with me and the rest of the family while we were going through this. But the thing is that this was all going on in my life, and yet every day I was still able to cope with the rest of my life. Like I would be getting phone calls and texts from my friends to meet up for lunch, or to go for a walk, or to go to an event in Toronto or whatever. And I was able to do that. I was able to still laugh and enjoy my time with them, knowing that all this is going on with Elliot in Vietnam. But it just goes to, it's a perfect example of like your thoughts in the moment affect how you feel. I mean, it's not to say that I wasn't affected by what was happening with Elliot. Obviously I was. I mean, I remember going on a drive in the car and like pulling over in a park somewhere and just bawling my eyes out, like it was just like so overwhelming and just feeling hopeless. And I mean, I did go there and I spent 10 days with him. And luckily my stepfather, he went for about 10 days as well. So he wasn't entirely alone that whole time, and his girlfriend, she was there too for 6 weeks. So he had a lot of support, physical, like with people being with him. But yeah, the three principles just, it just made me realize that we do feel our thoughts. And yeah, I was still able to get on with my life and knowing that all this is going on. And it was a huge relief when he was finally able to come home. Thank God.
Yeah, I bet it was. I think that's just such a, such a tragic but such a beautiful story as well. And as you say, it's such a beautiful way of exploring how the principles kind of show up in our everyday life. You know, and how we're still human. You know, so often I think that in those early moments when you come to the principles, you think, hey, this is a cure for being human. You know, I'm never going to feel things are going to be overwhelming for me. I'm not going to experience stress anymore. I'm not going to experience upset. And actually, what you do is actually you experience something a lot richer than that, because you have the understanding of what is going on, you know, that you feel it's absolutely okay, and you know it's okay, that if you feel like bawling your eyes out, that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. You need to do that. It's very healing, I think.
And to just go with all the different kind of emotions that you're going to feel.
A lot of my friends would say to me, oh my God, I can't imagine what you're going through, and how are you coping? And they mean well. Like I had a lot of people say that to me, and that made me think, how am I coping? How am I getting through this? And it's because of the three principles. You know, it basically comes down to that, like that understanding of how we operate has made it really easier for me to cope with that. And that was a major tragedy for our family. It was very traumatic for all of us, yet I was still able to get through it. And I'm just very grateful for this understanding.
Yeah. And it's knowing, isn't it, that you're okay, that like that you are okay, you're still sitting in that wonderful innate health, you know, you have that there, and even though you might be experiencing all these different emotions, that actually you're okay. You know, yes. I think so often we say, oh, you know, we use words like I've been traumatized by something, and it's like it's impacted us, like who we are, like it's broken us, or it's left a stain or something. And I mean, I know for me anyway, you know, this understanding kind of goes to really explain how whole we are, and yet we might be having the worst experience.
Yes.
But actually we're preserved, we're okay.
We have a deep well of resiliency to draw on when we need it. That's how I see it. I mean, even my marriage, when my marriage ended, like I say, I was traumatized. Like my life as I knew it was just no longer there. And yeah, I got through it. It's funny. One of the groups, going back to the groups that I was volunteering as a facilitator for, this was another huge aha moment for me. There was 6 or 7 of us in the group, and I was co-facilitating. It was the very first session, and we were going around introducing ourselves and telling a little bit about our story. And there was this woman that was there, and she was probably in her early 60s. She looked like she was European, perhaps from Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere like that. She was very well dressed, immaculate makeup, very well-to-do woman, put together very well. And she was telling us her story, and she was really bitter and angry about her husband. I think he had an affair too, I believe, if my memory's right. But she was very bitter, and she said that she had 2 grown-up girls, daughters who didn't want to have anything to do with her father anymore, and she was angry, and a lot of hatred was coming from her as she was telling her story. And at the end of it, I said to her, "So I'm so sorry that that you have had to put up with this, and dealing with all of this." I said, "How long ago did this happen?" And she said 16 years ago. And I thought, oh my God, I thought to myself, that was a huge aha moment. I said to me, I said, I am so not going to be that person. Like, there's no way in 16 years from now am I going to feel like that. And it was just a huge turning point for me. Like, I guess I had to see something better, something good that's coming out of this. It's not all doom and gloom. I can't be a victim like that for that many years. Like, there's just no way. So that was another huge aha moment for me.
And how do you feel that like the understanding helped you kind of not do that?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, this was way before I knew about the understanding. And that's what I was saying earlier at the very beginning, how this is nothing new, and why are people making businesses out of this? Somehow I already had this knowing in me already. Like, even as a child, I think I've always been really in touch with my spirituality, even as a young child.
Yeah. And it is, isn't it? For me anyway, it is that kind of separation between our kind of spiritual nature, that kind of essence that makes us us, if you like, and the kind of like the human body and how that functions and gives us various different experiences, and how we can kind of just still relive the past. So we can play the tape in our mind over and over and over again, and bring that past and still, like an old film or something almost, isn't it? That we can bring it to the fore and live it and feel it and all of that, or we can just see it as thought, creating an experience that we don't want to have it. We can just, let it float on by, and something new will come up, something fresh, something more, something better, something more enjoyable. Yeah. Oh, I love that. So you touched on it, that you're now kind of moving your business forward. So have you had any insights or ideas about where that's going to take, or what kind of feel have you got for the future? How do you feel you're going to take things forward?
Well, I want to do more one-on-one work with women. I think I might start up the group work as well. I did that through meetup.com. And I just, when I first moved back to Canada, I set up a meetup profile, and it was this divorce recovery, divorce and separation recovery workshop or whatever. And again, I set that up before the free piece, and it was open to men and women. It was very general, and I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. And in doing that work, though, I decided, I really started to hone in on who it was I really wanted to work with. And I've decided now that it's women who are getting divorced or separating due to infidelity, because that's what happened to me. And that's where I think that's where my strength is to help people get through that. And I want to do one-on-one work. I'll probably offer some, 3-month or 6-month packages, but I also want to do a 3-day retreat with me, one-on-one. I'm just about to move from where I am now to the west coast of Canada, to Vancouver Island.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to be renting this beautiful carriage house. It's owned by a friend of mine, and she's going to let me rent it. And I'm going to offer 3-day retreats for women who might want to come and join me and work with me for 3 days. And I started to think, like, there's a lot of things that I love to do. Like, I love I love hiking and I love yoga and I do meditation and I do a bit of gardening and I also love cooking. And there's a whole slew of things that I really enjoy doing. Choose 2 or 3 activities that they want to do over those 3 days. So they'll get coaching from me, obviously, through the whole time, and they'll stay with me as well. But we'll do some. They can have a choice of designing their 3 days with me.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. I think that's what I love about this understanding is the freshness of the ideas that come out of it.
Yeah.
When we kind of sit in that space, and it just allows us to kind of really explore, you know, different ways of being and sharing. I think that's beautiful. Oh, thank you so much, Lynn, for joining me today. It's been fascinating talking to you, and thank you for sharing your incredible journey. Now, you mentioned earlier that you were just launching your website, but I understand that people can find you on Facebook and also on LinkedIn.
Yes.
If they want to contact you. So what I'll do is I'll put those links in the body of the podcast description. So if anyone who's listening wants to get in contact with you, then they can do that. They can do that, and I hope that they will. So thank you once again, and yeah, thank you for being on.